All right. Hi, friends. It is my first live. So here we go. It's a little weird. Probably nobody's going to be on here and see this. That's okay. I don't mind. I just want to be able to share some things with you guys today. So let's talk about a couple of cool things tonight, shall we? And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. This is supposed to be an AMA. So, but again, I don't think anybody's going to watch this. If you're watching the replay, would you let me know that you're part of the replay crew? And yeah, so let's talk about how does putting others first contribute to feeling frustrated and disconnected. So, if you're often found running ragged, trying to keep everyone else happy, um, we've all been there. I definitely have been there. I've sacrificed my own needs, prioritized those around me, thought that it was what I was supposed to do. It's how I was raised as a people pleaser and a codependent. But what I've come to realize, though, in my life now is that it actually was manipulation, strangely enough. I wasn't doing it to be manipulative, but I was doing it because I was trying to manipulate others into not leaving me. And that was pretty crazy when I had that just like that realization. That's what I was doing. And so what I did was I ran myself ragged. I absolutely ran myself into the ground. And so for those of you that don't know me, hi, I'm Stacy Short. I'm a transformational life coach here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I do virtual sessions though, and I specialize in women who are struggling with exhaustion and loss of identity due to putting everybody else's needs ahead of their own. And so they feel anxious and overwhelmed and frustrated. And I help you really get a grasp on that people pleasing behavior. I help you eliminate that negative self talk that just beats you up inside internally every day. And I help you rediscover your resilience and life that you want to live and that you set out to live and who you were to begin with before you accepted all of the roles and the hats of wife and mother and daughter and sister and employee and best friend and all of those crazy, crazy roles, right? So, my story I was a people pleaser. I brought up in a people pleasing codependent household, and then I had my oldest in 2005. And what we found out quickly was that he wasn't okay, and we didn't know what, we didn't know why, we didn't know what's going on with him. But it took us 2 years, and I almost lost him twice during that 2 years. And the first time he was hospitalized for a long time was at 9 months old. And I had been watching his clothes get bigger on him. And I was going to the hospital with the doctors, urgent care, every day for weeks on end. And his doctor, his pediatrician, actually told me that white middle class children under doctor's care in this day and age just don't die. And I was so floored. I was so floored because one, that she had the audacity to even say that, and then two, it was absolutely against everything that I was seeing. And so it took him throwing up out of his eyes, so out of his mouth, out of his nose, and then out of his eyes, in the doctor's office in order for her to take us seriously. And so she put us in a children's hospital that night, and a cardiothoracic surgeon came in. We had been there like 4 hours. And he said, I think I know what's wrong with him, but if I put him on my operating table, he'll die, because his heart was so weak from being what they call failure to thrive. And basically, what that meant was he had been throwing up everything that he had been ingesting for months upon months upon months upon months. And so put they put a central line in his body, and they fed his his heart directly with something called TPN. And it took 4 days to get him strong enough to withstand surgery. And he was in surgery. And while he was in surgery, my boss called and she said, "What does this look like?" And I said, "I have no idea." I was working at a children's advocacy center at the time, which is where children go to get forensically interviewed when they have disclosed abuse, sexual abuse. And so she said, "I know you're going through it, but I need somebody here now for these families." And so she fired me as I was sitting in the waiting room for my son to let even know if he was okay. And that was the beginning of a very, very, very long journey. And so we were in the hospital that time of week, and they put a feeding tube in his belly. He had a G tube. And they told me he wouldn't go to middle school with it, or no, excuse me, kindergarten with an N. And he was 13 years, 355 days before he got it out. He was a day shy of his 14th birthday before we finally got it out. He didn't eat by mouth until somewhere around 6, 7. We did 4.5 years of feeding therapy. There was a stint when he was 22 months that we were in the hospital for 3 weeks straight. And one of the doctors at the hospital actually insinuated that I was Munchausen's by proxy, which is now called factitious disorder, because they didn't know what was going on with him. And they thought that I was truly making him sick in order to get that attention, which was not true. And so they put in a medical assistant into his room for 24 hours a day for the 19 days that we were there. So if I was sleeping, there was somebody there. If I was showering, there was somebody there. If I was pooping, there was somebody there, documenting every time I touched my son, because they were convinced that I was making him sick in order to get sympathy and empathy. And that was so not the truth. What we found out 2 months later is that he was actually born without an immune system. And so he is a rare bird. He's like 1 in 500,000 people. And he now gets infusions every 4 weeks. He's 18 now. So they started at 24 months and now he's 18. So he's had 16 years of infusions. And each infusion, they bill my insurance company, actually my ex-husband's insurance company, around $30,000 a treatment. And so for many, many, many years, I completely lost myself in the role of caretaker. And I had to pivot back into food and beverage because I couldn't be there for somebody's mental health and have my son get sick, because he was a priority. So I would need to leave at the drop of a hat or not come in, or, stuff of that nature. And when you're in mental health services, that's not really conducive to somebody healing. And so I went back into food and beverage, and I worked in restaurants and hotels, which was okay. It was a pay the bills job, not a fulfilling career job. And I did that for many, many, many years. At one point in time, you had 14 specialists, medical specialists of all sorts, and including some in LA that we would drive 5 hours to see. And that was our life for many years. And I carried that weight of keeping him alive, let alone letting him be a little boy. My marriage suffered because of it. My youngest suffered because of it. And I suffered because of it. And it was exhausting. It was exhausting because all I thought about was the next set of appointments, the next things that had to be done. And it was such a heavy mental load to carry. And my partner tried, but it's just not the same. It's just not the same. And he allowed me a lot of times to just carry this load for his own self-preservation. I don't blame him, but it was very heavy for me to manage. And I was tired all the time, exhausted all the time. And in fact, my youngest told me a couple weeks ago, who's 16 now, he said that he felt like a burden. He felt like an annoyance to me because I was tired all the time. And I would push him off and say, I'll play in a minute, but I never got off the couch. And I know that to be true. I know that to be true. That's not, I'm so sad that he thought it was because he was annoying me, because he wasn't. But I was just physically incapable of getting off the couch because I was living in fight or flight all the time. And my ex-husband would go to work at like 5 in the morning. And then I would go to work at like 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, come home at 10, 11, 12 at night. And I would come home to a completely quiet house. Everybody else was asleep. And I would come home and have nobody to talk to, nobody to tell about my day, nobody to unwind with, nobody to get a midnight snack with, nothing. And so I was really lonely. I was really lonely. And I remember when my youngest was about 2, I went to my husband and I said to him, I am just devastatingly unhappy and I can't continue to do this. And his answer was, oh, don't worry. Um, our youngest goes to school in about 3 years, and then you'll have your mornings back to yourself. And I thought that was so out of touch because my oldest's condition is lifelong. And just because I didn't have the youngest there anymore, because he'd be in kindergarten, didn't mean that the oldest didn't need the medical interventions and the attention and the doctor's appointments and the shuttling around that I had been doing for years already at that point. But that's truly what my husband thought, is like, oh, you'll have your mornings back and you'll be fine. But that wasn't the case. I needed help carrying the mental load of not only motherhood, but being a caretaker as well. And so my marriage took a hit and it didn't survive. Um, and I'm sad still to this day that that's how it ended up. I didn't handle it the best. Neither did he. And I wish things could be different and better. Um, but we've been co-parenting quite a few years now, and it could be better. And that's all I'll say about that. This is not meant to bash him in any respect. He did the best he could with what he was willing to give, and I needed more. I needed more help. I needed more support. I needed more handholding. I needed more. I needed more. Because what had been happening is I had been giving of myself and giving and giving and giving and like putting everybody else ahead of me so much, that I was so drained. And I had nothing left for myself at the end of the day. And because of that, I had built up a bunch of resentment for him, resentment for my kids, resentment for my family, resentment for my friends, because they were just fine to take from me and allow me to take care of them. But they weren't taking care of me, nor was I taking care of me. And so resentment's actually in the jealousy family. Even though it's expressed a lot of the times in anger, it's actually in the jealousy family. And I can understand that now that I know that, because I was jealous that I was taking care of everyone and yet nobody was caring for me, including myself. So many years have passed. We've many times in the hospital, weeks in the hospital, holidays in the hospital, birthdays in the hospital. The last 3 years with the pandemonium has been pandemonium, because we became hermits. Um, my son's now graduated and looking for a job and going to start college in the fall. But we don't know what life looks like. And it's always that uncertainty that's so scary, right? So anyway, a week before the pandemonium hit US, a friend of mine who's a nurse was telling me how she was going to get her coaching certification so she could be a health coach to people. And so I was just listening to her talk about this program. And then she said she was going in, there was like a secondary, a life coaching cert too. And I had given up all hope and expectation of becoming a therapist, which is originally what I set out to do. I have a BA in psychology and a minor in criminology, and I wanted to be an LMFT. But when my oldest was born, I realized that there wasn't time for that. Um, and so I remember that day so clearly. And I just remember it falling out of my mouth that, hey, I'll do it if you do it. And she was like, what? And I was like, I don't know. I guess this is what we're doing now. I didn't have the resources. I didn't have the money. But within 3 hours of that conversation, I'd signed up to start classes. And so when the world shut down a week later, that's what I spent my time doing, was learning how to coach others. And so now what I've decided to do, that was 3.5 years ago, is help women who were like me, who struggle with people-pleasing behavior, codependency, who struggle with putting everybody else before themselves, who struggle with boundaries, who struggle with negative self-talk and being their own worst enemy. And if that sounds like you, I see you. And I want you to know that I'm here. And so I'll be going live. I'm going to shoot for once a week. But if you're seeing this and you have questions, throw them below in the comments because I want to know how I can help you. If you want to go to my website and check me out, I'd love that. I don't do hard sales. They're yucky. But I just want to be able to help. And so I've been in my healing space now for 9 years. I'm a completely different person. 7 years ago, I lost my brother to unaliving himself. And so I've experienced major tragedy upon trauma. And I'm still here. I'm still kicking. And so I invite you to come and like, subscribe, hit the bell, all the YouTube-y things, because I'm trying to reach other women like me. And so if this resonates with you or sounds like a friend of yours, send her this live. I'd be honored. And if you have questions, drop them, please. And let me know how I can be of assistance. And that goes for men too, and them and theys and the gays and the hays. You're safe here. This is a safe space. That's really important to me. And so for the others, not just women, people who identify with women, I also am a mental fitness coach, which specializes in negative self-talk and a positive self-talk. And so if you'd like to hear about that, let me know too. But other than that, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for watching this. I so appreciate you. I hope you're well, and I'll catch you another night. See ya.